On our morning program today, we're pleased and blessed to have in the studio Michael Day, Native American author and leader. He is here to talk about some books that he has authored and also about his background. We really appreciate you making the effort to come down and join us in the studio today, Michael.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We hooked up with you through a friend. We were at the Lloyd Men's Shed a month or so ago, and he said, I know this guy, and so we were able to hook up. So we appreciate your friend being your agent here, so to speak, a little bit.
Yeah, Chuck is a good man.
Yeah.
Chuck is a very good man.
So you live in the Viroqua area, but tell us a little bit about your background, if you would, Michael.
Well, actually, I grew up in Wisconsin Dells, and it was interesting. My mother was involved in business. My father was involved with the Department of Justice. It was weird because we're known as the good Indians, and it didn't make us popular with the other Indians. And we lived in town, so I had non-Indian friends. So I grew up like where they called me not nice names, and they didn't like me because I was an Indian. And some people families didn't like us because we were uppity Indians. We were in a wrong position. I got beat up by non-Indians, and I got beat up by Indians for having non-Indian friends.
You couldn't win.
No, but when I was younger, my mother taught me people aren't born to be that way. People are taught to be that way. So remember that, and just say some prayers for them and their families.
No doubt about it. So then, where did you go from there? You've kind of been all over the world, haven't you, Michael?
I've been all over. I've been around. I worked with the Traveling Indian Tour, and during that time too, I was at Wounded Knee when that occurred.
So in 1973, you were at
I was at Wounded Knee. Yeah.
Wow, that made headlines.
Yes, and it opened up my eyes to a lot of things. I mean, yeah, I protested against the war and everything, and it was marginal in that as far as like your experience. But being actually out there and having people shoot at you for your beliefs and wanting to kill you, not only the U.S. government, but also Indians and non-Indians themselves, the goon squads. They were basically right-wing death squads, but put out by the tribal government. And governments were fighting one another. The government was fighting the traditional people because they didn't want to bend to what they wanted to do. So the traditional people asked for help. And they're the ones that suffered the most. They're the ones that are living in poverty, still do. Not only on the Pine Ridge Reservation, but all over in Indian country. I mean, there are people still living on dirt floors, have outdoor johns, either have a pump out by where they live or have to travel to get water. But that's still the way it is. I mean, then over the years, I've read about our history and everything, and like, people don't know, and I give talks at the universities and likes, but I ask people, do you know how many Native people were killed for this country? And they go, a couple thousand, and things. I said, oh, that'd been nice to have been that, but even tragedy, couple million, 6 million, 7 million. I said, keep going.
Is that right?
90 million.
90 million.
Yes, they through epidemiology studies now they show that there was over 100 million Indians living here in the United States. Oh, is what is known as the United States. But we all learned how to live together, and our principles weren't based on written word. They're based on spiritual principles. So following those spiritual principles, things were pretty good. Did we have wars? Of course we did. But not wars where we massacred one another.
Yeah. Is there a commemorative thing in Wounded Knee, South Dakota? Some sort of museum? Is there?
Yes, yeah. there is a place, and not only that, you'd be surprised, but our President Trump has made it a national landmark.
Oh.
Wounded Knee. People don't know that about him, but he did do that. No other president has to recognize what happened.
You've obviously written some books. That's why you're here today. But you've got one, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Everett Lone Wolf. That kind of is that loosely based on what you experienced in some of your life?
Yes, it is also primarily based on the fact that a lot of people don't know Native people as a culture or in our traditions. And they don't understand that. I mean, they see an Indian and they think, oh, do you know Father Sky? How do you know Mother Earth? And see, we have woodland Indians, we have southwestern Indians, we have northwest coast Indians, we have plain Indians, we have urban Indians. See, not all of them were raised traditionally. And so I wanted to bring that out, and that's why I wrote the book, Everett Lone Wolf. It was because I wrote about a young man growing up in Chicago that didn't have that. And didn't have he had the desire to learn. He wanted to know what it really meant to be an Indian, but no one was going to allow him, what were willing to teach him. So he had to learn. And he went out there, not by books, but by meeting people who are actually living the traditional way of life. There's still people living the traditional way of life. And it's not a religion. A lot of people say, what's your religion? We don't have a religion. It's a way of life. And so I can explain that a little bit by writing separate stories about his life and how he developed that and learned to live that way and how he carried that with him throughout life. I mean, I also write about not only Wounded Knee, but also write about The Longest Walk that happened in 1978. It started out with 24 people, Native people walking from San Francisco. They walked all the way to Washington, D.C. By the time they got to D.C., there were thousands of Native Americans, Indians, who came from different tribes and joined them on the walk to bring those issues that we still had. Because Wounded Knee, yes, it did bring out what was happening, but people forget, and people have other things to think about, but yet the people were still suffering. So they wanted to bring that issue up again. Look at, just because this happened, and you said you signed treaties, nothing's really happening. We're still going through what Wounded Knee was about. Help us. And, I was there as well. I was fortunate. I used to work for the state of Wisconsin, and I asked my supervisor if I could take off. He said, you do a good job here. What? Yeah. How long you be gone? I said, a couple of weeks. He said, okay, we can let you go, but you can't get paid. I said, that's all right. I lived in Madison, and I left. I went out to D.C. for The Longest Walk.
Oh, you did? So where did you meet him along the way, or did you just meet him in the city?
I met him at D.C., and I ran into a bunch of people that I knew from Wounded Knee. I knew people that were leaders, like Floyd Westerman. He's gone now, but he was a good friend. We become good friends.
Unreal.
And I knew the other American Indian movement leaders. I knew them, and yeah.
But all the tribes kind of came together.
Oh
for
yeah,
the same
they
cause.
all came together. It was really nice because I brought a recording device with me, and WORT in
Madison.
I did a show for them on that. And I was talking with people, Native people, Native men, Native women, about why they were there. And one woman, she was Seneca. She said, I probably lost my job, but I brought my kids down here to experience this so they could learn what it really meant to be an Indian. And that we weren't alone, just by ourselves, but we were all together. And she said, this feels so good. I'm glad I can give this to my children.
When did you start writing books, Michael? Is that something that you've discovered later in life, or something?
Later in life.
Uh-huh.
Later in life, I had a high pressure job in the Bay Area, and I wrote this manuscript in the 80s as a stories for myself as I was riding the bus. And I actually have it's handwritten. I still have the copy at home. And I just put it away. And let's see, 3 years ago, Eddie Nix from the bookstore, Driftless Books in Varoka.
Okay.
I asked him if he would read it, and we've talked, and I've given talks about being a medicine person and the like. So, and he said, "Sure, I like you. I'll read it." He said, "But I'm busy." And I said, "I understand. This has been sitting around for a while, so it's all right." And after 3.5 months, he came back to me, and he called me up. He said, "Michael," I go, "Yeah." He said, "I read your book." I said, "You did? So what'd you think?" He said, "I think we should publish it." I said, "Oh wow, okay." And I said, "So but what did you think about it?" And he paused and said, "Well, there's only one word for it, Michael." Oh, I said, "That's interesting. What's that word?" He goes, "Heavy." And I said, "Well, coming from you, that means a lot to me. Thank you. Thank you a lot." And so I worked with him, and we got the book published under Ramshackle Press. It's being sold at his bookstore, and yeah, and Metaphysical Graffiti has another bookstore in Varoka, and it's sold there. And I promoted the book a little bit and had it put in other bookstores, but I don't have high expectations about the book being a bestseller and all this. I just wanted people to get to understand and get to know us as Native people better, because some of the people that read the book have told me we didn't know this occurred.
Right. Yeah.
We weren't aware of this, and it was pretty cool. And in fact, I even had a lady that has always been like gruff and mean, and she came up to me and says, "I read your book. I'm amazed that you could write that well." I said, "Huh?" He said, "I even underlined passages in that book. There's a lot of meaning in your book." I said, "Well, thank you." And she said, "No, thank you." So it's just, it's those little things. Because Eddie asked me, he said, "What do you see about your book? What would you like to see it read and placed?" I said, "Well, I'd like to see it read in like the bathrooms." I'd like to see it be read out in subways,
Sure.
or on a train station, or on a bus, because it's based on stories.
Right.
Because the way we live life, and we look back at our own lives, things change for us by a mere incident, and that could change us. So I wrote those little stories that I wrote in the chapters with that in mind.
What are you hoping to accomplish? You're hoping to. I mean, this is recent history for our country and things
Correct.
like that. You're trying to get the word out, just kind of better educate people.
Yes, and I also want people to see that we're still continuing to go through that. This was written in the '80s. No, I mean this is 2026, and it's still going on. It's even worse now. I mean, it's like with the murdered and missing indigenous women. You look at that, and that's really a sad part of our history, and also the misuse of our traditional ways as well by errant medicine men, or people that call themselves medicine men, or people that call themselves spiritual leaders. That's going on. I mean, just right now, we just had medicine man. He was an actor.
Really?
Yeah,
He was posing as that then.
He was. I don't know. He was a medicine person, but he played Smiles a lot in Dances with Wolves.
Oh, sure.
Nathan Chasing Horse. Well, he's got a life sentence now for abusing women, abusing girls, and he used his status as a medicine person and as a movie star and everything to attract these people, and people would follow him. But it's like, in a way, a lot of people aren't really living the traditional way of life. They look at our ways in a manipulative way, and using the Western European mindset of good and evil. If you don't do this, the bad spirits will come, and people go, "Ooh," they're scared. But he's a medicine man, I'm going to believe him, But people ask me, are there bad spirits? I said, of course there are. But you don't have to allow them to be in your life. We have the ability to say no. They say, I don't need your energy. You should find someone else, because you probably will find them, but you can leave me. I'm not here for what you want. I'm here to help people, not use people. So that's how it goes. But a lot of people don't have that gumption, because what happens, they get caught up in looking at money, power, and prestige.
Right.
And that doesn't motivate me. What motivates me is the principles that we have as far as Native people, and what that really means. I mean, I love that way. I grew up a Ho-Chunk, and we're pretty strict about our ways, and I'm a member of the Bird Clan, and I liked what we did growing up, but when my grandfather was our spiritual leader, and he told me one time when I was a little boy, he said, grandson, one day you're going to find a way that you want to pray. And when you find that way, you'll know it. You'll know it. And don't let anyone tell you not to pray any other way, because you'll know right here, right in your heart, and you feel it. So you stay with that way. No, of course, I'd love to have you follow our Ho-Chunk way, our Wangchuk way. And maybe even become a medicine lodge member someday. But if you want to be a Christian, be a good Christian. But all my grandpa wants you to do is find a way to pray, because that's really important in life.
How long did it take you then, Michael, to maybe get to that point?
It was when I was 20 years old.
Okay.
I mean, we grew up. When I was 4 years old, my parents, we became Christian. We became Catholics, because it was pretty strict back then in the 60s, in the 50s and the 60s, and the Ho-Chunk way is pretty strict as well. So it fell right in line with that. But my parents said they wanted us to understand Christianity, because they felt we wouldn't be able to really survive in the non-Indian society without understanding Christianity and how to work with that. So they said once we're 16, we can make up our minds. My mother was a Catholic all her life. She liked it, and she never had, My parents were really good about that. They allowed us to do that. They gave us that choice. Just like, we say Creator gives us that choice too, Mm-hmm. And so they lived that way. I mean, I was a mass server, and I used to serve mass. And then when I was done with serving mass, we'd jump in a car and then go to a feast, a clan feast. And I'd be shaking and singing the songs, and we have a feast, the feast with the other clans. See, in the Ho-Chunk, we had 12 clans. And we got moved 5 times out of the state of Wisconsin. Our chief's name was Aochoga. He kept on bringing us back. They say, why did he do that? He said, because we look at God not as God, but we call him Mauna, world maker. And he asked us to take care of this part of Wisconsin. And he said that was our sacred duty, and that's what kept things copacetic for us. So no matter what little pieces of paper they tried to put on us, we said, no, Mauna said for us to be here. So finally, they moved us in Nebraska, and he said, no, we got to go back. So instead of 12 clans coming back, only 5 did. 7 stayed out in Nebraska. But we still have those clans.
Even today, about the same number then as when you grew up?
Right. But they're not as strong out in Nebraska, because in the early 1900s, you heard it in the Native American Church. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's Christian oriented, and a lot of people gave up the bundles and everything to become Native American Church. And so they became Native American Church, and they looked at the old ways as being savage and the likes, and they just dropped it. But in Wisconsin, we still kept our clans. the clans that we did have.
I know you get out and you speak to libraries. By the way, Michael Day, Native American author and leader, our guest on the show. When you go out, Michael, what's the most common question that you get from people that want to know more about you or your culture?
Well, everyone wants to know, like, it's crazy. Okay, I'll be honest with you. They want to know, what's it like to live in a teepee?
Oh, okay.
Okay, and it's like, well, to be honest with you, I've never really lived in a teepee. I've camped in them, I've slept in them, but I've never lived in one. Here in Wisconsin, we had chipotekes, like long houses or round ones,
Mhm.
and that's what we stayed in. I mean, I grew up in one. I We lived in town, and then our house burned, and we lost everything. And my father put up a chipotike, and that's what we lived in for a number of years. Because I remember my father. We were looking at our house, and I remember it raining. I was holding my father's hand. And I was looking up, and the roof was caved in, everything was all burnt, and the top half of the house was gone. And my father just squeezed my hand and said, "Don't worry, son. All we got to do is start over."
Hmm.
And that's what we did. I mean, I lived in a Chipotake all through high school. And we had to pump water at Outdoor John, dirt floor. I know what that's like.
What's that like in the winter in Wisconsin, living in one like that?
You know what? We had a nice, good stove.
Okay.
So that kept us warm, But you had to keep it going. There were things to do. I mean, it was like, it wasn't easy, but it brought our family closer together. We relied on one another. We were there for one another. So that was good that way, And my parents were still open. They rebuilt everything, and they flourished themselves. I mean, they moved out and they did well. I mean, even as I was growing up in what you would consider poverty, I was still a junior class vice president in high school. I was the first Indian to go to Badger Boy State in Wisconsin Dells.
That's a good answer to a trivia question right there.
Yeah, yeah.
That's amazing.
And I was also a teacher elected class student council my senior year. So, despite all these things, what you call poverty and everything, you can still pull yourself up. You see, there's nothing stopping you but yourself.
You are a survivor, though. All the things that you've experienced in life and gone through and everything.
Tenacious.
Tenacious is a good word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tenacious. I mean, it's like you just keep on going, just like my father when he held my hand. Don't worry, we can start over. And I've done that a number of times in my life because things weren't, I was doing well, but it didn't seem right. So I would start something new.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what's great about this country too, because you can, but don't expect to start on the top. You got to always start on the bottom, but you can build yourself up. And just got to be tenacious about what you're doing and really have that focus, those goals, those objectives, and meeting them, and you can succeed.
I'm curious to learn more about a medicine man or medicine person and what that encompasses. At what point did you kind of go in that direction, Michael?
Well, I got divorced in 91. And I ended up leaving the Bay Area, and I ended up in South Dakota. And I was living with this medicine man by the name of Elmer Running. And I was his helper, basically. And he was doing ceremonies, doing sweat lodges, whatever he wanted done, I would go help him. And May of that year, he goes, Michael, you talked about needing direction in your life. I think it's time for you to go on the hill and what you would call a vision quest. And I've been helping him put people on the hill and everything. And I said, okay. So I called up my parents to let them know, and we had to set a date. and my parents came out from Wisconsin. They were alive then. They're gone now. And I had everything set up, and then my uncle Leonard Crowdog came over, and he said, "I heard you're going on the hill." And I said, "You're right, Uncle." And he goes, "I'm going to help put you on the hill too. You're my family. You're my family, and I don't let family go alone. So I'm coming too." So I had two medicine men put me on the hill. Usually I only have one. And we go into a sweat lodge before we went in. Night before, I quit eating at 12 o'clock and drinking water. And in the morning, we had the sweat lodge ready. I went in the sweat lodge. We prayed. They gave me a cup of water. And I had everything set up, what we call the hochaka, the altar that I was going to sit with. And we put it all together. They put a robe over my head so I couldn't see where I was going, and they put me in a truck and we took off. And they left me out, took it off when they had everything set up for me. They brought me out and I stood there, and Elmer and Leonard came to me and said, "Pray hard." And that's what I did. And I prayed because I've been very lucky as far as like making money wasn't that hard. I just had to like work hard, work at it, and I could make money.
Yep.
But I knew that wasn't life. To me, that's what America meant, making money, and that never fulfilled me. So we call it crying for a vision, and I was literally up there crying. I said, "What am I really supposed to do? I've done all these other things, but it didn't satisfy me. It didn't touch me. I need to know what I'm really supposed to do in life. I'll do whatever you want." And during that time, when I was up there, it was cold. It was rainy. Lightning came the first night. A lightning bolt came down, not even within 20 feet from where I was sitting and praying. And when you get hit by a lightning bolt, usually that's like you're going to become a contrary, a heyoka, we call it. You do everything backwards. And I go, "Okay, if that's what you want me to be," I said, "You can hit me. I'm ready. Whatever. I'll do whatever you want." And there's other things that happened during the time I was up on the hill. And I prayed 4 times a day. And they finally came up and got me, and then they put me in the lodge again. After they put the blanket off, and they put me in the lodge, gave me some water, and we finished out the 2 rounds that we had. We had 2 more rounds. And after that, they said, they had me explain what I saw, what I experienced. And they said, "So what you said, there's a lot of meaning in what you went through. So we want to make sure." I said, "Sure what?" You said, "We want to make sure. So we're going to do a Uweepi tonight, a ceremony. The 2 of us. We're going to ask the spirits how to straighten this out." I said, "Okay." So we did. And my parents helped. They funded the Uweepi that night because you got to feed everyone that comes and take care of them. And that's what they did for me. And at the end of that Uweepi, they both came up to me. They turned the lights on because it was done in the dark it lasted over 3 hours. And they came up to me, both of the medicine men, and they said, "So, you know what this means?" And I kind of had a feeling. It says, "You're one of us now. So now we're going to start training you." And, a lot of people asked me, they said, "Well, you must have thought that was really cool." I said, "No, I didn't." I said, "Well, no, what'd you say?" I said, "Oh, Hey, why would you say that?" I said, "Because in the 70s when I was with Grandpa, he'd take me to other medicine men, or I'd go out on my own and meet other medicine men, other spiritual leaders, the old men. There's books about them now, but they told me what it really meant to become a medicine person and the sacrifices that you gave. And basically, I knew then my life was no longer my own."
A huge responsibility, isn't
Yeah.
it, Michael?
Yeah. And that I'm here now to help anyone and everyone. It's not about the color of the skin or whatever. It's just people asking for help, be there for them. As long as they're they respect what you're doing, as long as they respect the spirits. If they don't respect the spirits, then step away. Because there's a lot of people that they want to be healed, but they want to say, I had a medicine man do it for me. I had an Indian do it for me, It's not that way.
Native American author Michael Day is our guest on WRCO. We'll have more coming up on The Morning Show. Native American author Michael Day is our guest. He goes by the pen name of Kunu, and Everett Lone Wolf is the book. Let's talk a little bit about being a medicine man and some people you've helped. You've changed some lives, Michael.
I didn't do it. The spirits do it. I'm just like their translator.
The middleman.
The middleman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an interpreter, because you get into a state where they come to you and they let you know what's going on, and they tell you what to do. And I've learned over the years to follow what they tell me, and it'll help people. And it works. But the thing is, too, the people that I work with that got better had to believe in what we were doing too. See, not because of money, not because of power, or not because of saying I was with a medicine man to do this. No, they really did have that belief that they're going to be taken care of. They really trusted in not me, but the spirits. Because I tell people before we start, we have what we call the hochaka, the altars set up. And before we start everything, everyone I've worked with over the years, I could say, okay, everything's set up right now, and we're going to turn off the lights, or we're going to, whatever I'm going to do, or I even do it in the light. I just say, are you willing to do what the spirits ask? Be honest with me. I had a simple life after that. I ended up becoming a carpet cleaner and air duct cleaning. But I made a good living doing that. Mm-hmm. I made enough to live on. I made enough for my wife and I have a nice house and cars and all that. But I worked. See, other medicine men would say, "Well, why do you work?" Because I'm supposed to. Because they were living off other people. They would go to people and say, "Well, I'm a medicine man," and they go, here, they need this, they need that. So they start giving it to them. They go, no. That's living off people. That's living off the innocence of people. See, everything is really simple. It's based, like, I have written in the book, he wants to learn about what it means to really about Indian. And I have the medicine man, his name is Ransfool. I have him say, well, everything is based on tobacco for us, the Lakota. Tobacco and the directions. All the ceremonies, every ceremony we do, whether it's a healing ceremony, whether it's a ceremony to go inside the sweat lodge, whether, all the ceremonies that we have are based on the directions in our tobacco. So what you should do is, like before, our ancestors petitioned the Creator with tobacco, and they asked him, how can I get closer to you? How can I get closer to you? So they did that for thousands of generations. And finally, the Buffalo Calf Pipe woman came and she gave us these sacred ceremonies that we could use to help people. And it also got us to get closer to the Creator. And see, that's how that happened. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so in the book, I had that man, Runswell, teaches the man that wants to learn about being Indian, Everett Lone Wolf, he teaches him how to pour tobacco. He said, once you get that, then you'll know. And we said, well, I did too. I said, well, I'm going to learn if I sit in the East, am I going to learn the songs? Am I going to learn what the moon or the stars, constellations, all this other gobbledygook and bafflegab? and Grandpa Henry, when he had me up there with a yellow flag, he just came up to me and says, knowledge. What does knowledge bring into your life? How do you live with knowledge? Because in the East, when the sun comes up, it brings light into darkness. Brings us knowledge. So how does that affect you? How do you live with that? So all you do is sit there for a whole day just praying about that and letting it come into me to see that and see how it worked. and separate it. See, in every direction has an energy.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn that. And see, there's 7 directions, and the directions we say, they were out there, but one day they came together. And when they came together is what the non-Indian calls the Big Bang, and the universe was created. See, we're still part of that. We're still part of that, and that's really wonderful. I mean, like, I'm 73 years old. I'm not going to live forever. But people ask me, so what do you think about the other side? And I go, that'd be cool. What's cool about it? I said, I get to meet the people that poured that tobacco before we ever did the ceremonies. And I can thank them for how the way we help people today when I was alive. And I can thank them for the ability, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. I've been in ceremony, and the spirits told me, they say, we listen to your prayers. We listen to all the people's prayers. But, grandson, there are still ceremonies that can help Mother Earth and help all the people of the Mother Earth. But why would we give them to you if you don't even respect what we already showed you? That made sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So the ceremonies I do the way I was taught. I do the way the spirits tell me. They do it the way the elderly men that I met in the 70s told me. I keep to them.
How
Now,
often do you do ceremonies then, Michael?
Oh God, I can do quite a few of them. I mean, and sometimes it'd be a month or so, and then
Okay.
I'll do a ceremony. But other times, like even sweat lodges at a Sundance, I can do like 5 sweat lodges in a day.
Could you explain a sweat lodge and what that is, what that involves?
Well, it's purification. We purify ourselves. We're going to start going to a ceremony, or even for yourself when you're troubled. What you would do is for a Sundance, for example, we're going to go out there and pray with only one prayer for the whole 4 days. And you make 600 ties just with that prayer, thinking about that prayer. And you make 600 ties. You're going to put it on the tree.
Ah.
And so it's just pretty sacred. So every time we walk, that prayer goes into the tree. That energy. We just concentrate on that to do it properly. That's what a Sundance is about. And so in order to get in that right mode and get everything, we have to purify ourselves from all thoughts and everything, just to get ourselves centered with that prayer. And so we go into the lodge and we bring in the 7 stones, and they represent the 7 directions.
Ah,
And
okay.
they come in, they're there to help us. And as they come in, we tap them and give them that energy. The person that's running the lodge, the water, what they call the water pour, and it gives them that energy. So when that steam comes up, that's the energy of those directions. And we breathe that and it purifies us.
Okay.
And we sweat. Of course, we sweat and everything, but it just gets out toxins. It also gets out and gets us closer to the root. To the creation.
So you mentioned you get a little water.
Yeah.
How long do you go without food then during that time? Because you're fasting, right?
Yeah, you're fasting.
Mm-hmm.
See, a human being can live without water and food for at least 4 days pretty easy. We think it's a long time, but it really isn't. I mean, I've been where they even buried me in the ground, put a cover on top of it.
Is that right?
I prayed,
Wow.
and when they got me, God, I thought it was like a couple days. I was in there for 4 days.
Wow. That's like somebody's worst fear, I would think, to be buried.
No, you just give yourself over. But only medicine men. That's only for medicine men.
Right.
But no, you give yourself over. It's just like when I gave myself over when I was on a hill the first time. And when I do a ceremony, I give myself over to the spirits. And I let they tell me what to do. They let me know what goes on with everyone as well. That's my responsibility. But I never tell a person, well, I know you're going through this or that. I don't do that. That isn't proper. Some people would use that to manipulate people, but you don't, because if a person really wants to tell you, they'll tell you, and that's and I have to respect that, and that's what I do. That's what the old people told me to do.
Hmm. Do you have a website or some
I don't
information?
do any of that because I made a promise to the medicine men, the old men, and the grandmas and grandpas that I met, well, elders out there, that I would never do social media, because I'm not doing this to bring people to me. I'm not doing this to get followers or want money, power, or prestige. I'm doing this because the spirits asked me to help the people, and people that get a hold of me is through word of mouth, and it works out better that way. I mean, I keep my promise to them. I mean, I have my own brothers and sisters use it, Facebook and all this other stuff, TikTok or whatever. I mean, I don't. I don't, because I made an agreement, and like in the older days, when we make an agreement like a handshake, I make a handshake with the spirits, that I'm not going to do it. I honor that handshake.
Hmm.
No one can do it but me. And just like I tell people, don't look to your right or your left or front or back. It's up to you. It's up to you to live that good way of life.
Good point.
It's just
Yeah.
like you can blame, bing, bang. But it all boils down to who we are, and the integrity we have in ourselves, the integrity we have for our families, the legacy that we have with our families, the legacy that we create for ourselves as well. It keeps on growing. But I have the responsibility for that. For me, I'm the eldest son of my family. So I take that seriously. Otherwise, I'd still be, if I wasn't, I'd probably be still living in Phoenix.
Hmm.
But after my father died, I told him before he died I would come home for family, and I did.
Well, you've written a book. Any more books in the works? Have you thought about doing a biography?
No,
Nothing like that.
I'm working on one right now. It's from this one, Everett Lone Wolf. Wrote about talked about the medicine man, Runspool. I'm working on that right now. I'm about 3/4 done. I'm going to working on a rewrite, in fact, right now.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then I have 2 other books after that, based on characters in this book, the first book. One with Milo Yellow Hair. I talk about him. And then the last book was going to be about a woman that met all these 3 men and knew them, and how it affected her life, and how she translate what she learned from them to share to the world.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff, and I think it helps us all to kind of realize, what it's all about. I think there are a lot of misconceptions about Native American people.
Sure, it's just like when the drumming. I hear that, and when I give talks, I said, "Remember this one? What does that mean? What's the words to that? And or people hear singing at a powwow or singing at a ceremony, they go, it's a bunch of jumbled words."
Mm-hmm. Well, Hollywood didn't help that, and
No.
the stereotyes through the years.
But just like a song, I'll sing it to you. Tunka shalaka, wonka tonka, hey ahoye wayelo. Tunka shala, wonka tonka, hey ahoye wayelo. Tunka shala, omakiayo, makakiayo, hey. We keep on repeating that. But it really means his grandfather, Great Spirit, a voice I am sending to you. Grandfather, help me, for I am suffering. See, it's a prayer. Those songs that they're singing are prayers. They're not just something just to, fill the air. It's just like when the spirits work with me, I sing this song. But they tell me, because I've gone on the hill 6 times. And the last 5 times is because the spirits wanted me to go out and they wanted to teach me. And that's how I learned. See, I haven't learned from a man in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the spirits that teach me. And they say, we want to unburden you from the man animal, so to speak, because they told me he has an ego, and he could have different motives, but the ones the spirits I work with, are there to help people.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're not there to use people; they want to help people.
Leave your ego at the door, then.
Right, and they teach me the songs to sing, and they say, grandson, if you sing this song when you ask for me to come, I'll come and help them. I'll come and help them. And that's how people got better, because I sing the songs and they come, And see, I'm no different than any other man, really. I just tell the only difference I have from being another human being is that I actually believe in my prayers. And another thing too is I live my prayer.
Mm-hmm. There's a difference.
Yes,
Yeah.
There's a big difference. I mean, it's really easy to say a prayer, because a lot of times people come inside Sweat Lodge, they go off on tandems, and they say, oh, praise you for the little butterfly I saw the other day and the bird. And, it's just like, people ask me about that, and I said, okay, imagine yourself, close your eyes and put your hands up. And when you open them, your hands are in the Creator's hands. And you're looking straight at the Creator. What would you say? That's your prayer.
Well said, Michael. It's really a pleasure to meet you, and we hope people will check out the book. You said it's available at some local bookstores, especially in Viroqua area.
Yes. It's online,
Mm-hmm.
for books at Ramshackle Press.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michael Day, and the book is Everett Lone Wolf, and there are more in the hopper, it sounds like, as well.
Yes, and here is something. The foreword I wrote to this was, to the many generations of ancestors who poured tobacco and prayed for another way to connect with the Creator of all things. If it was not for your belief and faith, we would not have the beautiful sacred ceremonies we have now. May we use them in your honor.
Good way to end. Thanks so much for coming down, Michael. We appreciate you.
You're welcome, and thank you for giving me the time, and spend the time really and get the book, because it may be written about a native person, American Indian, but a little bit of Everett is in each and every one of us. That's searching. And yes, we can find what we're looking for, as long as we have an open heart.
Michael Day, our guest, Native American author and leader on today's morning show.